Multicultural education refers to any form of education or teaching that incorporate the stories, values, beliefs, and perspective of people from different cultural backgrounds. At the classroom level, for example, teacher may modify or incorporate lesson to reflect the cultural diversity of the students in a particular class. In many cases, culture is defined of the most comprehensive sense possible, covering race, ethnicity, nationality, language, religion, class, gender, sexual orientation, and exceptionality, which is a term applied to students with specialized needs or disabilities. Multicultural education aims to improve the learning and success of all students, particularly students from cultural groups that have been historically underrepresented or that suffer from lower educational achievement and attachment. Generally speaking, multicultural education is based on the principle of education equity for all students, regardless of culture, and it strives to remove barriers to educational opportunities and success for students from different cultural backgrounds. Around the world, there are several barriers to multicultural teaching, such as students' resistance, language barriers, lack of teaching resources, time constraint, and lack of knowledge about multicultural teaching pedagogies. Ecuador is a pluricultural, multicultural, and intercultural republic, but this doesn't mean that there are no barriers within the classroom. For example, excessive competitiveness in the classroom, a curriculum that is too rigid, or a type of classroom organization and activities that don't encourage cooperation and group work are some of the most common barriers that prevent the true inclusion and integration of all students.
High and low context communication styles. The clash between culture is growing. Cross-cultural communication is often complicated because sometimes words are used to combine others. One of the most important linguistic aspects are high and low context. For example, if a student is going to exchange to US from Japan and does not speak English at all, the easiest thing for the teacher would be to apply the high context. The students will have a better understanding and interpretation of the subject. Instead, a good example of low context is when a teacher sent a book to read about the formation of the planet, and the book contains too much and unnecessary details. The student tends to get bored and stop reading.
Hello everyone, I'm going to present my study case. Rosita is a female student from a native Ecuadorian culture, Los Quisepenchas, with a strong influence on Tungurahua. So Rosita attends to an English class at international school, which is located at Guayaquil. So Rosita attends her class dressed with her traditional clothes, which is a long skirt along with a long poncho, red poncho. So this is when the conflict begins, because the teacher considered this as an act of discipline, an act of disrespect, because according to the students' code of conduct, all students need to wear the official school's uniform to attend class. So for this, the school director intervenes and presents two solutions. The first one is that Rosita and the teacher should work together to find a solution that benefits both parties, considering that Rosita's feelings are important and that her way of expressing her culture should be respected. And also we have to take into account that the teacher needs to have an open mind and understand that in the right context, culture can be a powerful learning tool that improves the learning experience. And the other one is that the school directors dictate new guidelines that are flexible with students from different cultural backgrounds, and that benefits those students in the way they can feel comfortable with their own culture. Thank you.
Cultural attitudes toward group dynamics. Cultural difference can lead to unfavorable modes of cooperation among students for different backgrounds. For instance, some cultures prioritize individualism, which can make it challenging to adapt to a group work environment. Conversely, collectivistic cultures may face difficulties when individuality is emphasized. In this point, let's consider cultural attitudes toward group dynamics. In some cultures, group harmony is highly valued and leading to conformity and avoidance of conflicts at all costs. For example, in Japan, the concept of wa or harmony is often associated with the idea of harmony both in interpersonal relationships and in the broader sense of a social and natural balance. It emphasized the importance of working together faithfully and maintaining balance in the one's action and interaction. In contrast, other cultures may value individual contribution, and open discussions which can lead to misunderstandings of different approaches. Thank you.
We are going to talk about the how to overcome the cooperation challenge. There are many things that we can do to overcome the cooperation challenges, and one of the things is to use different educational models. For example, multicultural and intercultural curricular model. The distinction between these two is that the initial pertains to the implementation of pedagogical techniques that acknowledge the diverse cultures and their compatibility concurrently. On the other hand, the intercultural curricular model is more dynamic as it incorporates activities that render the teaching and learning process more engaging. The objective is to surmount cultural obstacles and cultivate empathy and effective communication among individuals from different cultural contexts. And in Ecuador, there is a intercultural model that is called Mosaic, and it applies as it constructs an experiential and situated learning environment which support students to develop capacity for everyday activities, including nutrition, farming, and effective social interaction, among others. And there are other things that we can do, and the other thing is that we can use techniques in the classroom, for example, extracurricular activities, trust building activities, icebreakers, and collaborative work. Thank you.
Now, what do we do when there's a new student that comes from a different environment and we want to integrate him or her into our classroom setting? If we look at this table that appears on the screen, there are three factors that we need to focus on. The first one is cognitive. The second one is interpersonal, and the third, interpersonal. If we look at the cognitive aspect of our students, we need to assess how well they are able to understand the content that we provide. And that is a good metric for understanding their level of inclusion. Now, interpersonal is where we focus on their own perceptions and ideas, and if they are able to understand and accept ideas from others. And finally, interpersonal is the level of social adaptation and inclusion that students experience on a daily basis. And finally, if we look at all of these factors and we notice that the students are scoring high and always attaining mature levels of development, that their integration will be seamless. However, since that's not always the case, if they score lower on each point of the scale, we'll be able to know where to focus on and what integrations to perform for our students and how to adapt our class so that they will be able to understand and to participate more. Thank you.
Cultural influence on learning and education. Educators must be aware of the unique needs and background of their students to foster positive learning and study habits. It is important to offer culturally relevant assistance and guidance to help the students adjust to their the new educational environment. For example, take the case of a Chinese student who has just started studies at a Western university. In China, the emphasis traditionally is on discipline, rigorous study, and adherence to established principles. In contrast, in the new university environment, students are encouraged to think critically, up to participate in debates, and freely express their views. This change in cultural expectations can be challenging for students, which can lead to frustration and feelings on being inadequate. In this context, teachers can help the students by using an approach that bridges the cultural gap between their background and the university environment in the West. This may include providing complementary language resources and encourage participation through a structured discussion and counseling to help students adapt to the expectations of the Western education system. In conclusion, educators can empower multicultural students to succeed academically by recognizing the role of cultural influence on learning and teaching, and adjusting their support strategies accordingly.
Now, let's quickly recap key points from the topics presented. Starting with that multicultural education refers to any form of education of teaching that incorporates the stories, values, beliefs, and perspectives of people from different cultural backgrounds. In the classroom, for example, teachers can modify or incorporate lessons that reflect the cultural diversity of the students in a particular class. It should also be mentioned that the clash of culture is increasing. Cross-cultural communication is often complicated and conflicting because sometimes words are used to convey other terms, thus generating some disadvantage. In incorporation words, cultural difference can lead to unfavorable modes of cooperation between students from different backgrounds. Science, some cultures give priority to individualism and collectivism. Cultures may have difficulties when individuality is emphasized. But the challenge of cooperation can be overcome. In Ecuador, the intercultural model is applied, which builds an experimental and situated learning environment that helps students develop skills for everyday activities. In addition, there are pedagogical techniques to foster trust and teamwork, such as the icebreaker. Finally, the teacher must keep in mind that creating a friendly environment for someone who has just arrived and has another culture is not easy. But through different techniques such as PIA or models presents above, it's possible to develop a good teaching and relationship between students. Thank you.